Let me break out the 80s dance.
They are working very hard to manage the influx of people who need stuff done at Rev Tax. I was just there yesterday for passport. All right, so make those appointments, guys, because the demand is great as you're coming in to work. Or you can see it. You don't go that way, but there's always a lot of cars in Barragata Heights. So we'll get Daphne on in just a little bit. But before we do that, let's head into the KUAM News Zoom room with the one and only Jason Salas.
All right, and good morning, everybody, and good morning to one of our dear friends, a advocate of CHamoru rights and preservation of history, if ever there was one, Dr. Robert Underwood, a scholar, a statesman, and now someone who is working to, should we say, Doc, to restore proper indigenous names, not only in villages, but perhaps in other places throughout the island? Good morning, Doc.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jason. That's the point of, and it's actually the mandate given to the Comisión Nacional CHamoru, of which I'm a member and which I've been asked to chair the place name committee. So that's the point. So we're going to engage in a multi-month process, first to work with the village names, and then for the following 3 months, we'll work with the place names, which could be very exciting.
Now, Doc, for people my age, because like I'm in my I guess I would consider my late 40s now. In my lifetime, I've experienced Aganya going to Hagatna more recently, and then also the introduction of Tidzen at what used to be the former naval air station, of course, and then Sumai. The area, and pretty much people like me just knew it as that area between PD and Santa Rita as you head to naval station Guam. But there is somewhat of a history and in positive ways of us reclaiming the names that were originally given to these locations. Like you said, it may be a municipality, it may be just like a region.
Well, yes, of course. What happens is when you ask people to consider the original place names, their historical imagination goes to work, and before you know it, they're thinking about how to build buildings, how to name buildings, how to name facilities, and they start connecting to the land. And when people connect to the land, they feel better. They feel like they're more connected. So, if you're a plan unit developer and you want to name a place, you should stick to the original place name. I always get a kick, not that it's meant as a criticism, but I always get a kick out of summer homes. When is it summer in Guam? There's no summer in Guam. You have rainy season and dry season. It's like you're almost disconnected. It's almost like a deliberate disconnection from where you're at.
No,
with the exception of those 45 days when it rains.
No, they mean it's summer homes, summer houses.
We want to make that connection. So tonight we're having that the first meeting on the village. The villages will be, the southern villages will be taken up. We suspect or we anticipate that there may not be as much controversy as in the central villages next month. But for tonight, there is interest in Sumai, because Santa Rita, the current municipality of Santa Rita, includes Sumai, and the only way that most people know Sumai is right now is that's where the Taco Bell is.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Underwood, with your work as a as a former congressional delegate and also as an academic, you've always, as I've known, you always consider both sides of the argument. And as you hold these public hearings, certainly there will be, even if it's only the minority voice, a certain amount of like pushback or maybe just some concern. It might be perhaps the business community who might say, this is going to impose additional cost because of, advertising or letterhead or stationery, whatever the case is going to be. Right? I remember when Aganya to Hagatna came up, this was a case, and they're like, okay, so who's going to pay for me to change all of my signs and all my whatever?
Who's going to pay for that H and the T?
Exactly.
Letter H and letter T is.
Yeah. So Doc, to address those concerns that invariably are going to come up and everything, what would you say about some people who might have, not necessarily they're standing against it, but might just say, there is going to be a little bit of logistics that have to go into this?
Well, of course, those concerns, but we survived the change to Hagatna despite the doom and gloom that was predicted by many people, and now people are actually saying Hagatna.
Yeah.
And people said, "I'll never say it." I was I was raised in Agana. I wasn't raised in Hagatna, and now they have to say Hagat.
Robert,
Because I mean, this in a way it's forward thinking that is based on a backward analysis. So that's the issue. So many places have done this. Of course, the biggest example for us is Hawaii, where if you have any interaction with people in Hawaii, they're pretty insistent that not only do you spell it and you use Hawaiian names and you spell it, but you actually say it. And so we're hopeful to be able to do the same thing. Although there's really not very many place names in Chamorro place names in Guam that are that difficult to say as there are in Hawaiian, which has
Robert,
too many vowels.
I wanted to ask, so because we're doing the village names and then the place names, which are the little areas within the villages. But do you anticipate any of the village names being changed, like we just saw Inarahan to Inalahan? So what other types of like village name changes do you anticipate?
Well, the ones that are for the southern villages are all pretty much going to be pretty obvious. Maleso, Humatak, Talofofo, Hagat, Santa Rita, and then what to do with Sumai, which will be the only, I anticipate the only major change. But the issue of what to do with Hagania Heights, there's some people who argue that we should call it Tutuhan. So there's that issue, and that'll be taken up next month. There's the issue of the official name of the municipality I live in is Tamuning Tuman. If we follow the dictates of the law, that will be changed to Tamuning Tomhom. That's one. But now, in recent years, they've taken to adding Harmon onto it. Yeah. Which clearly, Harmon is not an indigenous name.
No, Hutman. It's Hutman, Robert.
Hutman?
Hutman.
And then some enterprising business person is going to come up here and set up like a traditional oven and say the Hutnu from Hutman.
No, but what is Harmon?
There you go.
Robert?
Well, and if they do that, that's using traditional imagination. I would applaud them for that because it might be the first time that they ever started thinking about connecting to the place that they're in.
I think Chris is going to do that, right? The Hutnu from Hutman.
Hey, Robert, but what do we call it?
Well, I'm sure Chris is going to do a great riff on this.
What do we call Harmon though? What's the?
I can't wait for the video that's going to come out.
What's the indigenous place name for Harmon, Robert?
There's, I think the original, I'm not sure what the original name is, but it isn't Harmon.
Yeah.
And it isn't the Himlani apartments.
Right. That's what I think is interesting about this, because you as a Chamorro scholar, right? I mean, Chamorro backwards, sidewards, but when you start going into these villages that you're not from, it's like you're going to be educated on why they call certain areas in these villages certain
Absolutely.
names. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, what do you do in Jotnia? Do the people of Jotnia want to keep Camp Witik?
Right.
Because that was the name of a Marine Corps camp that was built in the right at the end of World War II. Yeah. So what do you do with Camp Witik? Camp Dili, which used to be down in Ipan, has almost fallen by the wayside, but there was a time when that was called Camp Dili. We have Camp Watkins Road here in Tamuning, which has been, is now disappeared from sight. And I lived in most of my life here. I grew up in Snanya. Most of my life has been lived in Baza Gardens or Jonestown. And both of those names have put out of focus other names. And so what is the current thinking and feeling and appetite for changing those names? And that will be a matter, I think, of controversy.
Robert, do you think that when we get the place names, debated, decided on, that let's say when you're in Jotnia driving around, that as you drive around the village, you'll come into like a now entering Pulantat or, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Are we going to have to tear down all those signs?
That's up to the signs. The village signs themselves are going to change because that's mandated by law. The mandate by the law is to change the village names to traditional place names and spelled according to the original orthography. So, Dedido is pretty easy to pronounce, but it's going to be spelled differently. And then, changing agate to Hagat, well, I don't know that over time that'll change, but what are you going to do with Pagazzo and Sinili and R.R. Cruz subdivision? These are like common place names that people use. And what is the difference between old agate and new agate? And where is old agate? And so those are important decisions that we want people to focus on, and we want to use traditional place names insofar as possible. We're not a place name police. We're not going to cite people.
You're going to give a ticket?
Remember,
you call it Kamwitig, you get a ticket.
Yeah, that's
the ancient Chamorro name for that is that you get a citation.
So it's like up in Windward Hills. Windward Hills, put out a focus, Maledzo. And I was talking to someone who lives up there in Windward Hills Estates. And he says, well, what was the original name for this? I said, it's Maledzo. He goes, well, I live on Maledzo Street. I said, well, at least somebody didn't forget about it entirely. So, those are the kinds of issues, because there's a story behind all of these.
Well, that captures it.
The story is going to be more engaging than Windward Hills.
That captures it perfectly, Doug, because you've used two words that I think kind of summarize, the opportunities, but also the challenges of making this happen. As you said, change and then stories, right? As an educator, do you have any? Do you envision anything about educating a younger generation, like maybe in Guam history or for the schools that really take a lot of pride in teaching Chamorro, to understand the stories behind these names and why it's important for young people going forward?
It's going to be amazing. The opportunity. You see, education always begins with connection to place. The place you're at. Where are you?
Right.
What is the meaning of this place you're at? Who was here before you? History didn't begin when you showed up. History began long before you showed up. So this place name process is going to allow people the opportunity to make connections to their places, to where they live, to where they work in ways they hadn't thought of before. Do we really want to, and some of these things are just kind of accidents of history. Anderson Air Force Base, we don't have authority to change Anderson Air Force Base, but that area is really all called UPI. But Anderson himself was a brigadier general who died in a plane crash. He didn't really do anything specifically heroically, but somebody decided that they should call it Anderson. And so now that name is stuck with us, and there's really nothing distinctive about that man. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there's Nimitz Hill. Who gets to call it Nimitz Hill? Why should we call it Nimitz Hill? It had a name before, and so that's going to be a very interesting conversation as well.
Well, this is interesting, Robert. What time is the meeting tonight in Hoggett?
Then the meeting tonight. Thank you, Chris. The meeting is in Hoggett at 6 p.m. at the community center. We'll send out a Zoom link for people who can't make it personally, and we'll apply all sanitation and social distancing rules. And I want to thank Mayor Allig, President of the Mayor's Council, Mayor Kevin Susuico, and Vice Mayor Chris Fairan of Hoggett for their assistance.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome. I'll see you in Hoggett.
On the Zoom. Get any Zoom. Hey, 7:13. We take a quick break and get ready. News about your stimmy is coming up. We should ask him, how do you say stimmy?
Stimulus.
Robert, do you know how to say stimulus?
Stimulus. Well, I don't want to get into that.
Right on. That's a whole other set of village meetings. Right on. Okay, that's it. 7:13. Break nods, and we'll be right back with more of the link.
Join the foundation.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at